Hey, it's Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. What happens after we die is an unknown, but our physical being is just organic matter. Here in Washington, some people are choosing to stay that way after death. In a minute, we'll talk with Katrina Spade about Recompose and her new approach to end of life. But first, let's get you caught up. Don't go breaking all the rules just yet. King County's top doctor is warning there's a good chance we're headed into a fourth wave of COVID infections. In a briefing Friday, Dr. Jeff Duchin said new cases are up 43% from 2 weeks ago. And consider this, less than half of the adults in King County have received their first shot. Just 33%. Duchin says COVID variants are still a concern, including 2 new variants from California. Seattle preschoolers and some special ed students will get to see their teachers and classmates in person today. They're headed back first as the district gets ready to return grades K through 5 next week. The district and teachers union are still negotiating about how to bring back middle and high schoolers. Governor Inslee says he wants it to happen by April 19th. And the Gonzaga Bulldogs keep chasing history in the men's NCAA bracket. They still haven't lost a game all season, breezing past Sweet 16 opponent Creighton yesterday, 83-65. That puts the Zags 3 wins away from being the first unbeaten national champ since the Indiana Hoosiers did it in 1976. They'll play USC tomorrow night for a shot at the Final Four. Hi there. We've got a great conversation coming your way in about 30 seconds. If you listen and like it, why not consider making a gift to help KUOW reach our spring membership goal? You can join as a monthly member at KUOW.org. We put a link in the show notes to make it easy. And if you're already a member and can pitch in a little bit more, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you for listening and supporting Seattle Now. We can't do it without you. When I met Charlotte Bontrager, she was holding a little box of soil.
It's a little cylindrical box, and you open it up, and it's looks like small bits of mulch mixed with some dirt. It smells like brand new potting soil, very fresh potting soil. And this is my mom.
Charlotte's mom passed away suddenly last November. This soil is what remains after her mom was composted. Washington State's first human composting funeral home opened in Kent last year. It's called Recompose. Charlotte chose it to honor her mom's love of nature.
She fed her backyard wildlife every day, even though I totally disagreed with it and said it wasn't healthy for them. Insisted on doing that for years and years. And so in West Virginia, we're still paying someone to feed those animals so we can wean them off for summertime.
Charlotte used some of the soil from her mother's remains to pot a dogwood and a Japanese maple tree they chose together prior to her death.
One of them is blooming right now. So they are on the back deck at my house, and I can look at them every day and watch them grow and know that she's in there.
The composting process yields quite a bit of soil. And like a lot of people who choose Recompose, the majority of Charlotte's mom's soil will be added to Bell's Mountain Conservation Forest in Clark County,
where I imagine she's going to be out there with the deer and the groundhogs and all the animals that she cared so much about, and helping to rehabilitate a portion of the earth that really needs it. So that's very meaningful.
Recompose has been offering their services since last December, but the journey for company owner Katrina Spade started a decade ago. Rituals around death are personal and deeply entrenched in religious and spiritual beliefs. And Katrina needed to do more than convince people human composting was a good idea. She needed to get legislation passed to support it. Now that Recompose is up and running, I met with Katrina in Seattle's Volunteer Park to talk about the future and what it was like to upset conventional beliefs about what we should do with our loved ones after death.
Well, we all have one thing in common, which is that we will die someday. There's lots of us on the planet. We have to do something with all of our bodies. So I think actually there should be lots of choices.
Of course, the idea of continually taking up real estate with our bodies after our deaths is simply not sustainable. It's just, we have to come up with another way. Do you envision a time actually where that's just not something we do anymore, is put bodies in the ground?
In Seattle, it's something like 96% of folks are cremated now. So burial is just rapidly going away. Unless you have a family plot and you've, a reason to want to be in the ground, most folks are choosing cremation. It's just the default. In Washington State, I think we're the highest in the nation right now at 85 or 86%. But all over the country, cremation rates are rising really quickly. So it's fair to guess, I think, that burial, unless it's a religious choice or deeply cultural, is going to go away, more or less. So we're left with cremation, which is just people choosing it for the most part because that's the easier choice. And my hope is that Recompose could become something like the default because, as you pointed out, it's actually helping the earth rather than harming it.
What happens when someone comes to you for your service?
The basic process that happens inside a Recompose vessel is a lot like what's happening around us here on the forest floor, or on the park floor, I should say, where dead organic material is decomposing thanks to microbes, oxygen, and moisture. All of those things are playing a role. And there's a mix of carbon and nitrogen materials. And as that breaks down, it creates a beautiful, nutrient-rich compost. Inside a Recompose vessel, it's almost identical to what's happening here, except that we have a lot more control over the environment inside of that vessel.
Let's talk about what happens to the soil once the body is decomposed and it's that nutrient-rich product.
We create a cubic yard of soil per person because we use so much plant material, wood chips and straw. And that's like 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet.
That's a big bale.
It essentially fills a pickup truck. Yeah, it's a lot of material. So we offer the opportunity for families to donate the majority of that soil to a conservation trust in southern Washington that we've partnered with. This gorgeous 700 acres of forest, mostly forest meadows, all kinds of types of wildland. But this forest was mismanaged in the 30s. And the people who've bought it and are stewarding it are looking at a 1,000-year plan of bringing that forest back to health. And so the soil that families donate goes to really productive, beautiful use at this place.
What a fantastic way, again, personally, I think, to honor the body, right? And honor the microbes by letting them do their work, continue the work. But we are so attached to artifacts of death. An urn, a headstone, a family plot. How did we get to that point where we needed that permanence so badly?
Ooh, permanence. That's such a good question. I think with the rise in cremation, we're seeing less of the attachment to the permanence. So fewer and fewer people have a headstone, for example. You might have an urn. There's a lot of urns that are tucked away in attics or closets. And one of the things I've always hoped was that with Recompose, we could release people from the guilt of having an urn that they thought they should keep, because ashes from cremation are just sort of a fragment of what was left of your person, and I would like to think that people don't have to hold on to them if they don't want.
Okay, so we're having this interview in Volunteer Park, and there's a reason for that. Tell me why we're here today, why this was a good space to do this interview.
We're here in Volunteer Park because I love this park, A, but B, because I always had the dream that someday Recompose soil, the soil that's created from the dead here in the city, could go back to the city. Wouldn't have to leave the city, but come back and be folded somehow into the urban fabric. Used here, like on these beautiful trees. It seems like maybe a bureaucratic challenge, but it's possibly something that we could figure out. And what better city than Seattle to embrace something like this, right? I mean, it's so environmentally driven. It's always sort of been a little bit dark. And so I think the idea of dead people folded back into the parks is totally reasonable.
Katrina Spade, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Seattle Now is produced by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Clare McGrane, and Jason Pagano. Matt Jorgensen does our music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.